All right, I decided to have some fun with this. So, since NHL players have voted that Montreal is the most improved of the teams in the NHL, I'm not going to disagree with that. We're going to take a look at how. And I wanted to put their old logo and their current logo on the board. That's the difference. This is the difference between the one they had in the 50s and the one they have now. Somebody somewhere said, we need to make the H fatter and close up the C. They went, man, that's some great work. All right, everybody, go home. You know why? Because that logo's perfect. It's there's nothing much. It's like somebody went out and said, hey, so they want us to change the logo. Not changing the logo, just close up the C and go home. So there you go. I wanted to do that because I thought that was kind of a fun thing to throw on the board. The cap space that Montreal currently has is $383,000. So gonna go out on a limb and say that's not going to be enough because you don't have any money to sign anybody else, which is fine because they've already improved the roster. Now, what's really interesting is that as we get into the season, and of course, as it rolls along, you can build up some cap space to add players at the trade deadline because of the way that the whole cap thing works. It's kind of headache inducing. I'll get into that at some point someday. But the reality is that if they decide to make additions and they find a way to save some money to make those additions, so trade out a high price contract and bring somebody in, they have 2 second-round draft picks this coming season, 3 thirds, 3 fourths, 3 fifths, on top of their own first, their own sixth, and their own seventh. They have a lot of draft picks. So that's 2, 5, 8, 11, 12, 13, that's 14 draft picks. And they look like a good team this year. So very, very well done by Marc Bergevin. And don't forget, next year, Cole Caulfield is likely coming up and joining the team. So things for Montreal are going to get a lot better, and quickly so. I'm also wearing a throwback that Reebok had for the Centennial season for Montreal. So a lot of logos. And now they're going to have the blue retro reverse jersey. So really looking forward to that one. I think a blue Montreal jersey could look really nice, as this blue hat kind of symbolizes. You can do a nice Montreal blue. I know there's going to be a lot of, we don't want to look like the Leafs. You won't look like the Leafs. The Leafs don't have that logo. So let's take a look at this forward group. And I also wanted to make a note of players who are UFA at the end of this season, because there were a lot of rumors about Tatar this past season, that maybe Tatar would find himself on his way out of Montreal. Didn't happen. I don't think it's going to happen. If you look down the proposed left side, and this is going to change, but Tatar, Drouin, Lehkonen, Byron, Paling, Vedemo, the reality is Paling probably should be in the everyday lineup, but you're not going to get rid of Byron. I don't know that Drouin is a number one player right now because of the constant injury concern, and Lehkonen's not first line either, so Tatar's job should be safe, but there may be changes made. Now, down the middle, this is where, if you're a Montreal fan and you want to start salivating, I understand. So, Danault is an unrestricted free agent at the end of this coming season as well. Now, Danault has definitely taken that next step over the last couple of years, but I still don't know that I see him as a number one center. I think it's better if he's the number 2 center and Suzuki becomes the number 1 center. Nick Suzuki in the return against Pittsburgh and then against Philadelphia, this kid is fantastic. He is every bit as good as advertised when he was drafted. He is, honestly, he's going to be the next Patrice Bergeron. And I say that as a Bruins fan that is not somebody who has great affection for Montreal, but if I got a Montreal jersey with a name on the back of it and it had to be a current player, it's Suzuki, and it's not even close. That being said, Kotkaniemi also looked a heck of a lot better in the return than he did during the regular season last year. Trading out Max Domi is risky. It's risky because if Kotkaniemi takes another step back, if they don't keep Danault, then suddenly their strength down the middle, we'll see. It may depend on Evans and his continued development. Wheel, he is unrestricted next summer, so 2021. And then you've got Hayden Verbeek, you got Dauphin, you've got Blandisi. You've got definite depth here. I think the most impressive thing with the Montreal forward group is the amount of depth. And it's no more apparent than on the right side. Gallagher is now joined by Josh Anderson. You now have 2 scrappy wingers on the right side. And then Toffoli kind of slots in as the number 3. Now, Toffoli may very well end up being second line on the left side, and Drouin may drop down, but then Lehkonen would drop down, and then where does Byron play? And that's where the curiosity comes in for me, because they definitely will have 3 scoring lines. This is on purpose. You have to have three lines that can put the puck in the net. And then Armia drops to the 4th line. I'm going to say straight out, Armia should not be on a 4th line. He should at the very least be on a 3rd. And I would be very surprised if, considering he's an unrestricted free agent next year, Montreal doesn't try to move him, just because I don't think this is necessarily going to work out best for him. I think a move out of Montreal might be the best move for them. Belzile came in and played during the return. He looked okay, and again, it's a 4th line role. And then there's Ylonen as well. There are enough guys here that if they did trade out Armia, they could get another draft pick. They could it could free up a little bit more cap space. Maybe they sign another defenseman, because why not? And they could actually get better through that. So Armia for me is the one that stands out as the guy who may very well end up being traded, because again, I think Armia with his potential, and it's still there. He's still young enough. I still think it's there. And I'm not saying like top 6, 30 goals, but 15 goals I think he can hit. And I would be very surprised if he's not moved before the end of this coming season. And then there's Charles Hudon, who as an RFA decided, I'm going to go play somewhere else. And I don't think there's any interest in Montreal. I don't know of any Montreal fans who necessarily will be overly upset if Hudon doesn't come back and sign in Montreal. So he's kind of out. But he was kind of out last year anyways. So Hudon, we'll see whether or not something changes or they move his rights or whatever. But at this point, he's still the property of the Montreal Canadiens should he choose to come back to the NHL. Then you get to their blue line, and this is where, to me, it's really interesting. So on the right side, you'd have Weber, Petrie, Romanov. Romanov looks like he's going to be fantastic. I'm going to say straight out, he'll end up probably on the 2nd unit power play in some manner. Now, most teams will employ 4 forwards, 1 defenseman. I think there's peril in that, because you're always going to be stuck with a forward playing back, and when you turn the puck over, I think that's why we see a lot of shorthanded goals now. That it just feels like there's more shorthanded chances now than ever in the NHL. And I know that's probably not accurate, but I think the 4 forward, 1 defenseman, or some teams play with 5 forwards on the power play. It can make your power play more lethal, but it makes you more vulnerable. So we'll see whether or not Romanov, who is listed as a right shooting defenseman, if he plays on the offside in order to have some power play time as well. And then you have Hayden Fleury, or Cale Fleury, Hayden Fleury's in Carolina, Cale Fleury, and Noah Juleson as well. So Juleson, who struggled with injuries, now I don't know that he's got a spot in the top 6. He may very well be another player in Montreal, is willing to move, add more draft picks. Down the left, you have Sherratt, Edmondson, Kulak, and Mete. All 4 of those defensemen need to play. So you have a situation in Montreal where you have 7 top 6 defensemen. The good news is that for any NHL team, you're usually going to have 1 blue liner that's hurt. For at least half the games, you're going to see 1 blue liner that's probably going to get hurt. So this is a good situation if you're Montreal, that you have 7 top 6 defensemen. And then you've got Ouellette, and I threw Leskinen on the board as well. And we'll see. We'll see who ends up playing for them and how this works. Because the offense seems to be all on the right side. The defense seems to be on the left side. And we'll see how that goes. Although Edmondson can definitely generate some offense here and there as well. He'll be a solid addition for Montreal. I like Toffoli up front. I like Edmondson on the blue line. I think Montreal did very well. And getting Edmondson signed to his contract at a decent cap hit before other defensemen signed for more money. And I would argue there's defensemen that right now are making more money who may not be as good as Edmondson, but until we play the games out, we don't know how that's going to trend. But this was a very, very smart offseason for Montreal. And then you look at their goaltending, and yeah, even smarter. Price, the starter. Jake Allen added as the backup from St. Louis. They signed him to a 2-year extension, making him more attractive to Seattle for the expansion draft. And Caden Primo is number 3. And it was reported yesterday that Montreal would like to see Caden Primo get a minimum of 40 starts in the minors this year. Minimum of 40 starts in the AHL. They want him to be the bona fide starter, and they want him to play a lot. So this is their battery, and I would think that Allen, if he's not drafted by Seattle next summer, then his contract will be moved. They'll trade him somewhere else, maybe to a team that loses a goaltender in the expansion draft. Let's say Vancouver loses Braden Holtby. They bring in Jake Allen, and then Demko can be the starter, Allen can be the backup, and Montreal adds a draft pick for 2022. And then for the following season, Price and Primo are your goaltenders. Caden Primo looked pretty good in a call-up. They want to make sure that he remains pretty good, and so he's got to play. But there you go. I think Montreal is a dark horse this year to be a playoff team and to be dangerous. And while we can look at that series against Pittsburgh and say, Pittsburgh choked, and there's some truth to that, Montreal has only improved since then, and they will be able to roll 3 scoring lines. They will have a solid top 4, and in Romanov, they actually have a defenseman now that can kind of be what Sergachev has been to Tampa. They can play him in sheltered minutes. They can give him some power play time to start out, and then gradually give him more responsibilities and gradually move him up the depth chart. Same as Tampa's done with Sergachev, who of course was Montreal property until they traded him for Drouin. So Montreal, I think Bergevin's learned from some past mistakes, and you can see that with the current lineup. It's a good team, and they're going to surprise some people. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.